The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and gold. The air carried a gentle breeze that rustled through the tall grass surrounding the outdoor wedding venue. It was a perfect evening, one that seemed almost too good to be true. Friends and family had traveled from near and far to witness the union of Emma and Daniel, two people whose love story had captured the hearts of everyone who knew them. Emma stood at the edge of the aisle, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a bouquet of white roses. Her dress was simple yet elegant, with delicate lacework trailing down the sleeves and hem. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. This was the moment she had dreamed of for years, and now it was finally here. As she glanced toward the altar, she saw Daniel standing there, his posture confident but his eyes betraying the same mix of excitement and nervousness she felt. He looked dashing in his navy blue suit, his tie perfectly knotted, and his hair neatly combed back. When their eyes met, a silent understanding passed between them, a promise that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together. The ceremony was held under an archway adorned with twinkling fairy lights and fresh flowers. Rows of wooden chairs were arranged on either side of the aisle, each one occupied by smiling faces. Some guests dabbed at their eyes with tissues, moved by the beauty of the occasion, while others whispered softly to their neighbors about how lovely everything looked. A string quartet played soft, melodic tunes in the background, adding to the dreamlike atmosphere. Every detail had been carefully planned by Emma and Daniel, from the floral arrangements to the handwritten vows they would soon exchange. As the officiant began speaking, the crowd fell silent, hanging on to every word. The couple listened intently as he talked about the importance of love, commitment, and partnership. "Marriage is not just a celebration of today," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "It is a promise to stand by one another through all the days to come, both the joyful and the challenging." His words resonated deeply with Emma and Daniel, who exchanged knowing glances. They had already faced their share of challenges together, and those experiences had only strengthened their bond. When it came time for the vows, Emma's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her words were heartfelt and sincere. She promised to support Daniel, to laugh with him during the good times, and to hold him close during the tough ones. Daniel, ever the steady presence, responded with equal emotion, promising to cherish Emma and to always strive to be the best version of himself for her. Their promises weren't just words. They were pledges built on years of shared memories, late-night conversations, and unwavering trust. As they slipped rings onto each other's fingers, the significance of the moment washed over everyone present. These small bands of metal symbolized something much larger than themselves, a lifetime of love, respect, and devotion. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the crowd erupted into applause. Cheers filled the air as Emma and Daniel sealed their vows with a kiss, their smiles radiant and full of hope. For a brief moment it felt as though time stood still, as if the entire world had paused to honor this beautiful union. After the ceremony, guests made their way to the reception area, which was equally enchanting. Long tables draped in pristine, white linen stretched across the space, each adorned with centerpieces of candles and seasonal blooms. Twinkling lights hung overhead, casting a soft glow that made the scene feel magical. A live band played upbeat songs, encouraging guests to dance and celebrate. Laughter echoed throughout the venue as people mingled, sharing stories about how they knew Emma and Daniel and reminiscing about moments that showcased the couple's undeniable chemistry. Emma and Daniel greeted their guests with hugs and thank yous, basking in the warmth of the community that had gathered to support them. They posed for photos, cut slices of cake, and stole quiet moments together whenever they could. Everything seemed to be unfolding exactly as they had envisioned. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic day, fate had something else in store, something that no one could have anticipated. Even as the festivities continued, there were subtle hints that not everything was quite right. A waiter stumbled slightly while carrying a tray of drinks, though he quickly recovered and apologized. A distant rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, though it went largely unnoticed amidst the lively chatter. And then there was the champagne, a seemingly innocent bottle among many, waiting patiently to play its role in the evening's celebrations. Little did anyone know, it would become the centerpiece of a tragedy that would leave an entire community reeling. For now, however, the Yati night remained untouched by darkness. Emma and Daniel danced under the stars, surrounded by the people who loved them most. They toasted to their future, unaware that their time together was slipping away faster than anyone could have imagined. In that fleeting moment, they were simply two people madly in love, savoring the joy of a day they had worked so hard to create. But as the hours ticked by, the shadows began to creep in, setting the stage for a twist no one saw coming. The reception was in full swing, a whirlwind of laughter, music, and clinking glasses. The air buzzed with energy as guests moved between tables, mingling and sharing stories about the happy couple. Emma and Daniel were at the center of it all, glowing with happiness as they greeted their loved ones. Every corner of the venue seemed alive with joy. Children chased each other around the dance floor, older relatives reminisced about past family gatherings, and friends raised their glasses to toast the newlyweds. Emma's father took the microphone first, his voice thick with emotion as he began his speech. He started by recounting funny anecdotes from Emma's childhood, how she used to insist on wearing mismatched socks to school, or how she once tried to bake cookies without following a recipe, resulting in a kitchen disaster that left everyone laughing. "She's always been stubborn," he joked, earning chuckles from the crowd. But then his tone softened. "And yet, through all her quirks and determination, she's grown into an incredible woman. Today, I see the same fire in her eyes when she looks at Daniel, and I know he's the perfect partner for her." His words brought tears to many eyes, including Emma's, who hugged him tightly after he stepped down. Next came Daniel's best man, a charismatic friend named Ryan who had known Daniel since college. With a mischievous grin, Ryan launched into a series of playful jabs about Daniel's less than stellar fashion sense in their younger years, and his tendency to get overly competitive during board games. "But underneath all that," Ryan said, his tone turning serious, "is one of the most loyal, kind-hearted people you'll ever meet. And today, seeing him with Emma, I know he's found the person who makes him truly complete." The room erupted in applause as Daniel playfully rolled his eyes but couldn't hide his smile. After the speeches, it was time for the first dance, a moment everyone had been eagerly anticipating. As the band struck up a slow, romantic melody, Emma and Daniel stepped onto the dance floor. The world seemed to fade away as they held each other close, swaying gently to the music. Their faces reflected pure contentment, as if nothing else mattered except the two of them. Guests watched in awe, some snapping photos while others simply soaked in the beauty of the moment. It was clear to everyone present that this was a love story meant to last. When the song ended, the dance floor opened up and soon the entire venue was alive with movement. Couples young and old joined in, twirling and laughing as the band played hit after hit. Even those who weren't much for dancing found themselves tapping their feet or humming along. The atmosphere was infectious, a testament to the care Emma and Daniel had put into planning every detail of the evening. From the carefully curated playlist to the cozy seating arrangements, everything felt personal and intentional. As the night wore on, the festivities shifted to the cutting of the cake, a towering masterpiece decorated with cascading flowers and intricate designs. Emma and Daniel stood side by side, holding the knife together as they sliced through the bottom layer. Cheers erupted as they fed each other small bites, laughing when frosting smeared across their cheeks. Cameras flashed, capturing the light-hearted moment for posterity. It was a tradition steeped in symbolism, representing the sweetness they hoped would fill their lives together. With dessert out of the way, it was time for one final toast before wrapping up the formalities of the evening. Emma and Daniel raised their champagne flutes high, encouraging their guests to do the same. "To family, friends, and a lifetime of love," Daniel said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emma nodded in agreement, adding, "Thank you, all, for being here to celebrate this special day with us. We couldn't have done it without your love and support." Glasses clinked as everyone echoed the sentiment, savoring the crisp bubbles of the sparkling drink. It was during this toast that something unusual happened, though no one noticed it right away. Emma sipped her champagne slowly, savoring the taste, but within moments, she froze mid-sip. Her expression shifted subtly, her brow furrowing as if something didn't feel quite right. She glanced at Daniel, who had also paused, his glass halfway to his lips. For a brief second, their eyes locked, unspoken concern passing between them. Neither said anything. They didn't want to alarm their guests, but both silently agreed that something was off. The change was so subtle that even those sitting closest to the couple barely registered it. Conversations continued uninterrupted, and the cheerful ambiance remained intact. Still, Emma couldn't shake the strange sensation creeping over her. She set her glass down gently, trying to focus on the warmth of the evening and push aside the nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach. Daniel did the same, forcing a reassuring smile as he leaned closer to whisper, "Are you okay?" Emma nodded faintly, not wanting to cause a scene. "I think so," she murmured, though her voice lacked conviction. Whatever discomfort she felt seemed minor enough to dismiss, for now. Little did anyone realize, however, that these fleeting moments of unease were the first whispers of a storm about to break. As the party carried on, the champagne bottles sat innocently on trays, their golden liquid glinting under the soft lights. No one suspected that one of those bottles harbored a secret, a sinister twist that would shatter the joy of the evening in ways no one could have predicted. For now, though, the celebration pressed forward, oblivious to the shadow lurking just beneath the surface. The clock ticked onward, marking the passage of time as fate prepared to deliver its cruel blow. As the evening stretched on, the atmosphere at the reception remained lively and full of laughter. The dance floor was packed with guests moving to the rhythm of upbeat songs, while others sat chatting at their tables, plates still scattered with remnants of cake and hors d'oeuvres. Emma and Daniel continued to mingle, their smiles radiant despite the faint unease that had lingered since the toast. They tried to brush it off, chalking it up to nerves or perhaps just the overwhelming whirlwind of emotions that came with such a monumental day. But as the minutes passed, Emma's earlier discomfort began to intensify. At first, it felt like a dull ache in her chest, a sensation she initially dismissed as indigestion or fatigue from the long day. She excused herself briefly, stepping away from the crowd to catch her breath near the edge of the venue. Leaning against a wooden pillar adorned with fairy lights, she closed her eyes for a moment, hoping the fresh air would help settle whatever was troubling her body. Daniel noticed her absence almost immediately. Concern etched across his face. He excused himself from a conversation with some relatives and made his way toward her. "Hey," he said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you sure you're okay? You look pale." His voice carried genuine worry, but also an underlying attempt to stay calm so as not to alarm her further. Emma forced a weak smile, though her lips trembled slightly. I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's probably nothing. Just a little tired, I guess." She straightened up, trying to shake off the strange feeling gripping her. But before she could take another step, a sharp wave of pain shot through her chest, causing her knees to buckle unexpectedly. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the ground as she reached out instinctively to steady herself. "Emma!" Daniel exclaimed, rushing to her side. He wrapped an arm around her waist, holding her upright as panic began to rise within him. This wasn't normal. This wasn't exhaustion or stress. Something was terribly wrong. As he steadied her, he suddenly felt a jolt of pain shoot through his own body, seizing his chest and making it hard to breathe. For a split second, he froze, staring at Emma in shock. "What's happening?" he gasped, clutching at his chest. The commotion drew the attention of nearby guests who turned to see what was going on. A few people rushed over, their faces etched with concern. "Are you two all right?" one of them asked, but neither Emma nor Daniel could answer. Within moments, both collapsed to the ground, their bodies limp and unresponsive. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people scrambled to figure out what was happening. Chaos erupted almost instantly. Someone shouted for help while another guest dialed emergency services. The band stopped playing mid-song, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Friends and family members gathered around the fallen couple, their voices filled with panic and disbelief. "Call an ambulance," someone yelled, breaking through the stunned murmurs of the crowd. Others knelt beside Emma and Daniel, trying desperately to revive them, though no one knew exactly what to do. Paramedics arrived within minutes, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness outside the venue. They quickly assessed the situation, working efficiently to stabilize the couple. CPR was administered, oxygen masks were placed over their faces, and IV lines were inserted into their arms. Despite their best efforts, however, Emma and Daniel showed no signs of improvement. Their vital signs were dangerously low and their conditions continued to deteriorate rapidly. As the paramedics loaded them onto stretchers and hurried them into the waiting ambulances, tears streamed down the faces of those left behind. Family members clung to each other, unable to process what had just happened. How could this be real? Just moments ago, they had been celebrating the happiest day of Emma and Daniel's lives. Now they were fighting for their lives and losing. Chico. Ride to the hospital was tense and silent. Save for the urgent instructions exchanged between the medical team, every second counted, but time seemed to drag on endlessly. When they finally arrived at the emergency room, doctors sprang into action, performing every possible procedure to save the young couple. Machines beeped frantically, and nurses moved, with precision, but nothing seemed to work. After what felt like hours, the head doctor stepped forward, his expression grim. With a heavy heart, he delivered the devastating news. Emma and Daniel had succumbed to their unknown condition. They were gone. Back at the venue, word of their deaths spread slowly, like a dark cloud casting its shadow over the once happy gathering. The music had stopped completely now, replaced by the sound of sobs and whispered prayers. Waitstaff stood frozen in place, trays still in hand, unsure of what to do next. Even the twinkling fairy lights overhead seemed dimmer somehow, as if, mourning alongside the broken-hearted guests, questions swirled in everyone's minds. What had caused this? Had they eaten something bad? Was it an allergic reaction? No one had any answers, only mounting dread. Some speculated about food poisoning, pointing fingers at the caterers, while others wondered if there had been an undiagnosed medical issue. But none of these theories made sense, not when both Emma and Daniel had fallen ill at the exact same time, exhibiting identical symptoms. Amidst the confusion, one detail stood out: the champagne. It was the only thing they had consumed together. During the toast, could it have been tainted somehow? The thought sent a chill through the crowd. Someone suggested checking the remaining bottles, and soon staff members began collecting them for inspection. Each bottle was meticulously examined, but nothing unusual appeared, at least not at first glance. As the night wore on, reality began to sink in. The wedding celebration had transformed into a scene of unimaginable grief. Loved ones huddled together, sharing memories of Emma and Daniel, trying to find solace in the life they had shared rather than the tragedy that had stolen them away. Photographs of the couple were pulled out, tears falling onto smiling faces captured just hours earlier. The contrast between the joy of the day and the sorrow of the present was almost unbearable. For Emma's parents, the loss was particularly devastating. They had envisioned countless milestones ahead for their daughter, a lifetime of happiness with Daniel, children running through the yard, family vacations, and quiet evenings by the fire. Instead, they were left grappling with the cruel finality of death. Daniel's family faced a similar void, struggling to comprehend how someone so vibrant and full of life could be taken so suddenly. As dawn approached, the venue emptied out, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Chairs were stacked, tablecloths removed, and decorations dismantled. The dreamlike setting that had once overflowed with love and laughter now felt hollow, haunted by the memory of what had transpired. Somewhere in the distance, a single strand of fairy lights flickered and went out, as if even the decorations couldn't bear to remain lit after witnessing such a tragedy. Though the immediate shock of the event had passed, the questions lingered. Who or what was responsible for this unthinkable act? And why had Emma and Daniel, two people whose love had brought so much light into the world, been targeted by such darkness? The search for answers was far from over, but for now, all anyone could do was grieve and try to make sense of a day that had started with so much promise and ended in unimaginable heartbreak. The days that followed the tragedy were a blur of grief, disbelief, and unanswered questions. The vibrant joy of Emma and Daniel's wedding had been replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss, leaving their families and friends reeling. But as the initial shock began to settle, a pressing need for answers emerged. What could have caused two seemingly healthy individuals to collapse so suddenly? How could such a perfect day end in unimaginable heartbreak? Determined to uncover the truth, investigators launched a thorough examination into every detail of the evening. Detectives arrived at the venue early the next morning, their presence casting a somber shadow over the now empty space. The once beautiful decorations lay dismantled, evidence of the celebration reduced to scattered remnants. Officers combed through the area meticulously, searching for anything unusual, anything that might explain the sudden deaths. They interviewed staff members who had worked the event, asking about food preparation, drink service, and any irregularities they might have noticed during the reception. Everyone was cooperative, eager to help solve the mystery, but no one seemed to have seen or heard anything out of the ordinary. One lead quickly rose to the forefront: the champagne. It was the only thing Emma and Daniel had consumed together during the toast, making it a logical starting point for the investigation. Authorities collected samples from the remaining bottles, sealing them in evidence bags for testing. Back at the lab, toxicologists worked around the clock, analyzing the liquid for traces of contaminants or poisons. When the results came back, they revealed something shocking. A rare and highly toxic substance had been found in one of the bottles. This poison was fast-acting, capable of causing severe organ failure within minutes of ingestion. The discovery sent chills down everyone's spines. Someone had deliberately tampered with the champagne. With this revelation, the focus shifted to identifying how the tainted bottle had ended up at the wedding. Investigators turned their attention to the catering company responsible for supplying the drinks. Employees were questioned extensively, and records were scrutinized to trace the origin of the shipment. However, after days of digging, it became clear that the caterers were not involved. Their inventory logs matched up perfectly, and background checks on all staff members showed no red flags. Whoever had introduced the poison had done so outside the normal supply chain, leaving the catering team as unwitting participants in the tragedy. As the scope of the investigation widened, detectives explored other possibilities. Could someone close to the couple have harbored ill intentions? Friends, family members, and acquaintances were interviewed, each providing alibis and insights into their relationships with Emma and Daniel. Most were ruled out quickly. There was simply no motive for anyone to harm the beloved newlyweds. Yet one name kept surfacing in conversations: Marcus, Emma's estranged stepbrother. Marcus had always been a complicated figure in Emma's life. Their parents' divorce years earlier had left deep scars, particularly for Marcus, who felt abandoned by Emma's side of the family. While Emma tried to maintain a relationship with him, his resentment grew over time, manifesting in bitter remarks and strained interactions. In recent months, he had become increasingly distant, cutting off communication altogether. Friends and relatives described him as angry and unpredictable, though no one imagined he could be capable of violence. When detectives brought Marcus in for questioning, he initially denied any involvement, claiming he hadn't even attended the wedding. However, security footage from the venue told a different story. Grainy images captured Marcus slipping into the reception hall shortly before the toast, carrying what appeared to be a small cooler. His demeanor was tense, his movements hurried, as if he wanted to avoid being seen. Confronted with this evidence, Marcus's confidence began to crack. He stammered and shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable to provide a convincing explanation for his presence. Further investigation revealed that Marcus had access to the delivery truck used to transport the champagne to the venue. By exploiting a loophole in the delivery schedule, He had managed to intercept the shipment weeks earlier, replacing one of the bottles with a tampered version. The poison he used was sophisticated, designed to dissolve completely in the liquid, without altering its taste or appearance. It was a chilling reminder of how calculated and deliberate his actions had been. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the full extent of Marcus's plan came into view. Motivated by years of pent-up anger and jealousy, he saw Emma's marriage as the ultimate betrayal, a symbol of everything he believed he had lost. To him, her happiness represented everything he felt deprived of, and destroying it became his twisted mission. The wedding, with its public display of love and unity, provided the perfect opportunity to strike. By targeting the champagne toast, a white moment meant to celebrate the couple's future, he ensured maximum impact, knowing that Emma and the revelation of Marcus's involvement sent shockwaves through the community. For days, people struggled to reconcile the quiet, brooding man they thought they knew with the calculating individual who had orchestrated such a heinous act. The image of Marcus as Emma's estranged stepbrother, a figure on the periphery of her life, was now overshadowed by the chilling truth. He had harbored a deep-seated resentment that culminated in an unimaginable crime. When confronted with the mounting evidence, Marcus initially tried to deflect blame. He claimed ignorance, insisting that someone else must have planted the poison and framing him for the act. But as investigators pressed him further, presenting surveillance footage, delivery records, and forensic analysis linking him directly to the tampered champagne bottle, his defenses crumbled. His demeanor shifted from denial to defiance and, finally, to a cold acceptance of his guilt. In a moment that stunned even the seasoned detectives, Marcus admitted to everything, but not out of remorse. Instead, he spoke with a chilling detachment, almost as if recounting someone else's story. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," Marcus said during one of the interrogations, his voice devoid of emotion. "It wasn't supposed to kill them. It was just meant to ruin their day." His words hung heavy in the air, revealing a mindset consumed by bitterness and revenge. According to Marcus, his plan had been born out of years of pent-up anger toward Emma's family. When their parents divorced, Marcus felt abandoned, believing that Emma's side of the family had turned against him. Over time, this sense of betrayal festered, growing into a toxic obsession. Emma's marriage became the tipping point, a symbol of everything he believed he had lost. In his twisted logic, Marcus saw the wedding as an opportunity to exact revenge. By targeting the champagne toast, he aimed to disrupt what he perceived as Emma's perfect life. He wanted her to feel pain, humiliation, and loss, just as he had felt when their family fractured. What he hadn't anticipated was the lethality of the poison he chose or the speed at which it would take effect. "I didn't know it would be so strong," he muttered, though his lack of remorse made the statement ring hollow. To him, Emma and Daniel were collateral damage in his quest for retribution. As news of Marcus's confession spread, the reaction was one of collective horror. Friends and family members who had once dismissed Marcus's behavior as moody or distant now grappled with the realization that his anger had spiraled into something far darker. Some expressed disbelief, struggling to square the person they remembered with the monster described in the investigation reports. Others felt a simmering rage, unable to comprehend how someone could harbor such hatred toward two people whose only crime was loving each other. Emma's parents were hit hardest by the revelation. They had always known about the tension between Emma and Marcus, but never imagined it ran so deep. "How could he do this?" Emma's mother sobbed during a private meeting with investigators. "He was part of our family once. We tried to reach out to keep the connection alive. How could he throw all of that away like this?" Her grief was compounded by guilt, wondering if there was something more she could have done to bridge the gap between them. Daniel's family shared in the anguish, devastated not only by the loss of their son but also by the knowledge that his death had been deliberate, an act of vengeance rather than a random tragedy. For those closest to Emma and Daniel, the investigation brought little comfort. While knowing the why behind the tragedy provided some closure, it did nothing to ease the ache of losing two beloved individuals. Conversations among friends and relatives often circled back to the same painful questions. Why couldn't Marcus see how much love and joy Emma and Daniel brought into the world? How could he let his own pain blind him to their happiness? These thoughts haunted everyone, lingering like shadows over memories of the couple. Despite the grim circumstances, the investigation also revealed moments of humanity amid the darkness. Catering staff, wedding planners, and venue workers, all unwitting participants in the tragedy, were cleared of any wrongdoing, allowing them to breathe sighs of relief. Many expressed their condolences to Emma and Daniel's families, sharing heartfelt stories about how kind and gracious the couple had been throughout the planning process. One server recalled how Emma had personally thanked her team for their hard work, going out of her way to make sure everyone felt appreciated. Another remembered Daniel cracking jokes with the band during sound checks, lightening the mood with his easy charm. These small acts of kindness painted a vivid picture of who Emma and Daniel were, two people who radiated warmth and positivity, even in fleeting interactions. Meanwhile, Marcus's arrest dominated headlines, sparking heated discussions about mental health, unresolved trauma, and the devastating consequences of unchecked anger. Some argued that Marcus's actions stemmed from years of neglect and emotional pain, suggesting that early intervention might have prevented the tragedy. Others rejected this line of reasoning, pointing out that no amount of suffering justified taking innocent lives. The debate raged on, fueled by interviews with psychologists, social workers, and legal experts. Yet, for all the analysis and speculation, one fact remained undeniable. Marcus's choices had shattered countless lives, leaving scars that would never fully heal. In the weeks following his confession, preparations began for Marcus's trial. Prosecutors built a compelling case presenting overwhelming evidence of premeditation and malice, security footage showing Marcus tampering with the champagne, expert testimony confirming the lethal nature of the poison, and his own admission of guilt painted a damning portrait of a man driven by jealousy and spite. Defense attorneys attempted to argue diminished capacity, citing Marcus's history of emotional instability, but their efforts fell flat in the face of his calculated actions. The courtroom was packed during every session, with victims' families, reporters, and curious onlookers filling the benches. Throughout the proceedings, Emma and Daniel's loved ones sat stoically, their faces etched with sorrow and resolve. They listened intently as witnesses recounted the events leading up to the tragedy, nodding silently as prosecutors outlined the irrefutable proof of Marcus's guilt. Occasionally tears spilled down their cheeks, but they remained composed, determined to honor Emma and Daniel's memory by seeking justice. Their presence served as a powerful reminder of the human cost of Marcus's actions, a cost that extended far beyond the lives of the newlyweds themselves. By the time closing arguments concluded, the verdict seemed inevitable. Jurors deliberated, for less than a day before returning with their decision, guilty on all counts. As the judge read the sentence, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, Marcus showed no outward reaction. His expression remained blank, almost indifferent, as if the weight of his crime still hadn't fully registered. For Emma and Daniel's families, however, the moment was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring their loved ones back. All they could do now was carry forward the legacy of Emma and Daniel's love, finding strength in the memories of the too short time they had together. And so, as the trial came to an end, the focus shifted from the courtroom to healing. Friends and family gathered regularly, sharing stories, photos, and laughter as they celebrated the lives of Emma and Daniel. Though the pain of their loss remained fresh, these gatherings offered a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, love endures. Marcus's shadow loomed large, but it couldn't extinguish the light Emma and, Daniel had brought into the world. Their story, marked by both joy and heartbreak, would continue to inspire those who knew them, serving as a testament to the power of love and the devastating consequences of hate. The aftermath of Marcus's sentencing brought a semblance of closure, but it was far from the kind of resolution anyone had hoped for. Justice had been served in the eyes of the law, but the wounds left by Emma and Daniel's deaths ran too, deep to be healed by a verdict alone. For their families, friends, and the wider community, life would never truly return to the way it was before. The tragedy lingered like an unshakable shadow, a constant reminder of how fragile happiness can be, and how quickly it can be taken away. In the months following the trial, Emma and Daniel's loved ones found themselves grappling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, there was relief that Marcus had been held accountable for his actions. His life sentence ensured he would never harm anyone else, and knowing this allowed some measure of peace to settle over those who had suffered because of him. Yet on the other hand, anger and sadness continued to simmer beneath the surface. How could someone harbor so much hatred toward two people whose only crime was loving each other? It was a question without an answer, leaving many feeling hollow and betrayed, not just by Marcus, but by the world itself. Emma's parents struggled to come to terms with the loss of their daughter. They had always envisioned a future filled with milestones, grandchildren running through the house, family vacations, quiet evenings spent reminiscing about the past. Instead, they were left with empty rooms and unanswered questions. Every holiday, birthday, and anniversary felt heavier now, marked not by celebration, but by absence. Still, they refused to let grief consume them entirely. In honor of Emma, they established a scholarship fund at her alma mater, supporting students pursuing careers in fields she had been passionate about, art and education. It was a small gesture, but it gave them purpose, a way to keep her memory alive while helping others. Daniel's family faced a similar void. He had been the glue that held them together, always quick with a joke or a kind word when tensions ran high. Without him, gatherings felt incomplete, conversations stilted. His younger sister, Sarah, took the loss especially hard. She had looked up to Daniel as a role model, someone who believed in her even when she doubted herself. To cope, Sarah began volunteering at a local youth center, channeling her pain into something productive. Daniel always said we should leave the world better than we found it, she told friends during one particularly poignant moment. I want to do that, for him. Friends of the couple also found ways to honor Emma and Daniel's legacy. A group of close friends organized an annual charity event called Love Lives On, raising funds for organizations dedicated to conflict resolution and mental health awareness. The name was inspired by the couple's unwavering belief in love's ability to overcome adversity, a belief that seemed all the more poignant given the circumstances of their deaths. Each year, attendees wore white roses, the same flower Emma had carried down the aisle on her wedding day, as a symbol of remembrance and hope. The event became a beacon of light in the darkness, drawing hundreds of participants eager to celebrate lives cut tragically short. For the wider community, the tragedy served as both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry. Conversations about unresolved anger, jealousy, and the importance of seeking help gained new urgency. Local schools and churches hosted workshops aimed at teaching conflict resolution skills and fostering empathy among young people. Social media campaigns encouraged individuals to reach out to estranged family members or friends, emphasizing the value of reconciliation over resentment. While these efforts couldn't undo what had happened, they offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Yet despite these acts of remembrance and advocacy, the scars remained. Some nights Emma's mother would sit alone in her living room, clutching a photo album filled with pictures of her daughter. She'd trace her fingers over Emma's smiling face, wondering what might have been if fate had taken a different turn. Other times, Daniel's father would walk outside under the stars, imagining the conversations he'd never get to have with his son. These moments of private grief were piercing reminders of the irreplaceability of Emma and Daniel, not just as individuals, but as anchors in the lives of those who loved them. Even as time passed, certain triggers brought everything rushing back. A song played at the reception, a bouquet of white roses spotted at a grocery store, or even a couple dancing under twinkling lights could send waves of emotion crashing over unsuspecting hearts. But amid the sorrow, there were also moments of unexpected beauty. Strangers inspired by Emma and Daniel's story reached out to share messages of gratitude, saying their tragic deaths had prompted important conversations within their own families. Others recounted how the couple's generosity and kindness had touched their lives, inspiring them to pay it forward in their own communities. Ultimately, what endured most was the love Emma and Daniel shared, a love so pure and selfless that it transcended even death. Their relationship had been a testament to the power of connection, trust, and partnership. Though their time together was cruelly brief, the impact they left behind was profound. Through the stories told, the scholarships awarded, and the lives touched by their memory, Emma and Daniel's legacy lived on, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, love has the power to shine brightly. As the years went by, the pain softened, though it never fully disappeared. Those who knew Emma and Daniel learned to carry their memories not as burdens but as treasures, sources of strength and inspiration. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. Marcus may have tried to extinguish their light, but instead, he inadvertently illuminated its brilliance. Emma and Daniel's story became a beacon of hope, proving that even in the face of unimaginable loss, love endures. It lingers in the laughter of those who remember, the tears of those who mourn, and the countless lives touched by their enduring example. In the end, justice wasn't enough to undo the damage Marcus had caused. But love, Emma and Daniel's love, proved stronger than hate. It reminded everyone who heard their story that while life is fleeting, the bonds we forge with one another are eternal. And in that truth lies the promise of healing, however long it may take.